This one's not for children. For all the people saying who hurt you, love is love, and why do you care what they do? This is what the alphabet movement is headed towards.
Still the adult child sex. That's always a big seller.
Oh yeah. Well,
I had good friends who said, "Are you crazy? Do not write that book."
man, listen, you're talking to a guy who for 25 years has been making arguments more or less in defense of adult child sex in classrooms.
In classrooms.
Right infringement case that we don't get, they can't give their valid consent, and therefore it's wrong in virtue of being a right infringement. And there's a view that it's exploitative, that even if it's not harmful,
Yes.
and even if it's not a right infringement, it's somehow an exploitation.
Right. I've heard all these. Yes. Okay.
Right. So those are the three dominant arguments. And none of these convince me. So
Me neither.
Listen to how they justify this.
On the rights-based argument, I think, look, we make children do all sorts of things that we don't want to do. Right?
Thank you.
You know,
God.
we make them go to church. We make them go to the temple. We tell them to go to school. They got to go to the dentist. They got to go to their sister's ballet recital. Well, it's tough.
That is all a child's life is coercion.
Right, that's right.
Is coercion by adults to make, and often to make the child do something for the adult's pleasure only.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
You say, yeah, you're going to go to your great uncle's funeral, even though you want to go, and even though it's
Right.
not in your interest.
Right.
What a horrible fucking comparison. We're not talking about making your kid brush their teeth.
Kind of other argument is that it's a right infringement, and I wasn't sort of convinced by that argument.
Children absolutely have a right not to be preyed upon.
And then last, exploitation. Again, I don't think exploitation is wrongful. I'm not exactly sure even what makes something exploitative. But
Exactly.
if there were, I'm not sure what makes it wrongful. And even if it were wrongful, it's not clear that it occurs in most cases of adult child sex, or even, let alone all of the cases.
Yep.
Wrongful exploitation is preying on a group that is more vulnerable and naive.
See it historically, right? It was true in adult child sex, true in ancient Japan, ancient China, ancient India, Egypt, even Great Britain. And you see in our closest cousins, the bonobos, right? Bonobos are the closest to us genetically. So if you see the same preference for adult child sex in young males today, in hunter-gatherer societies today, in history, and our closest genetic cousins, there's excellent reason to believe, not excellent, but there is good reason to believe that there's actually a strong benefit to adult child sex. Now, what is that benefit? I'm not entirely sure.
So because the monkeys did it and the civilizations before the invention of the spoon, we should also follow suit.
Imagine that an adult male wants to have sex with a 12-year-old girl. Imagine that she's a willing participant. It's not obvious to me that is in fact wrong.
I bet you could be convinced by some loving fathers.
There's a couple things to say here. One is, even if you are looking for a threshold, let's say there's a threshold. I'm making this number up, but let's say it's at age 8. Still, that tells you that some adult child sex is permissible. Second, the notion that it's wrong even with a 1-year-old is not quite obvious to me. If we're in the area of legislation rather than morality, here's a rule of thumb. If you don't know whether something has expected good or expected bad consequences, the thumb on the scale should go to liberty.
Don't you besmirch libertarian values with this smut?
So if we don't know whether willing sex with 15-year-olds is going to have net good or bad consequences, it's not like we say, oh, well, go ahead and ban it. The idea is that people trying to criminalize something bear the burden. And even having harsh opinions on this, before we condemn people for engaging these on the basis of probabilistic utilitarianism, we should know that it does pose a risk for those and only those willing participants.
Probabilistic utilitarianism is the same thought process that leads to the idea of like 15-minute cities, global warming crisis, or even extreme cases of communism. It doesn't stray too far from Satanism, where you prioritize your own benefit over others. I'm shocked. The alphabet people have gotten out of control. They want to adopt this, and instead of it being a P, they're going to make it an M, a minor attracted person.